Welcome to the shadows, my friends. Today we're doing more than just a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough. We're diving headfirst into the depths of Drow lore, their history, their culture, and yes, their questionable relationship with giant spiders. We're making a Drow character, we're romancing Minthara, and we're getting lost in the underbelly of Faerun, metaphorically and literally. This is part playthrough, part Drow history lesson, and maybe part fever dream. So grab your torches. Actually, never mind. We have dark vision. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of stats, class, and backstory, let's address the elephant, or should I say giant spider, in the room. The Drow are often described as a matriarchy, but let's be real, it's less matriarchy and more reverse patriarchy. So here's the deal. The Drow are dark elves who live in the Underdark, a subterranean nightmare realm where everything wants to kill you, including your own family. Their society is ruled by the Spider Queen, Lolth, whose whole mantra is, might makes right. If your idea of a good time includes betrayal, sacrifice, and a lot of spiders, she's the queen for you. Drow society is claimed to be matriarchal in the sense that women hold all the power. Men are second-class citizens, often relegated to roles like warriors, wizards, or, well, sacrifices. But here's the thing. This isn't a true matriarchy. A true matriarchy would uplift all society, not just the select 1%. Instead, Drow society is just as hierarchical, oppressive, and cutthroat as any patriarchy. It's just women doing the oppressing this time. Now let's talk about Drow society. Because if you thought your family dinners were tense, imagine sitting down to a meal where your mom might poison you for looking at her wrong. Drow culture is faux matriarchal, which means women hold the power, and by power, I mean a web of political backstabbing so intricate even Varys from Game of Thrones would take notes. At the top of this spider-shaped hierarchy are the priestesses of Lolth, the Spider Queen. She's not exactly a nurturing deity, unless you count nurturing a culture of paranoia, betrayal, and dramatic monologues about vengeance. But here's the thing, Drow society, for all its cruelty, is deeply traditional. And traditions are what hold exiled or displaced peoples together. Think about it. When your environment is hostile, your gods are vengeful, and the nearest daylight is thousands of feet above rock, the only thing keeping your community intact is a set of strict, shared beliefs. Drow are people shaped by their environment, their history, and their gods. And those gods are not messing around. To really understand the Drow, we have to go back, way back, to a time before the Underdark, before Lolth, before even the word Drow was a thing. We're talking about the ancient elves, a people so powerful and magical, they made the high elves of today look like amateurs. Back then, the elves were united under Corellin Larathian, their creator god, an ultimate symbol of beauty, art, and magic. But, as with any good mythology, there's always a fall from grace. Enter Ara-Ushni, Corellin's consort, and the original Spider Queen. She was the goddess of destiny and artistry, but also ambition, and that ambition would be her undoing. Ara-Ushni grew jealous of Corellin's power and plotted to overthrow him. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. She was cast out of the Elven pantheon, transformed into Lolth, and banished into the deep abyss. But here's where things get interesting. Not all the elves sided with Corellin. Some followed Ara-Ushni, now Lolth, into exile. These elves were cursed. Their skin turned dark, and they were driven underground, into the depths of the Underdark. And thus, the Drow were born. Over millennia, the Drow built their own society in the Underdark, shaped by Lolth's teachings and harsh realities of their environment. Menzoberranzan, the most famous Drow city, is a testament to their resilience and their ruthlessness. It's a place where power is everything, betrayal is an art form, and spiders are, well, everywhere. Now, let's talk about how Baldur's Gate 3 handles all of this, because it's not just dark elves anymore. The game gives us something much more nuanced. While older D&D materials often leaned hard into the evil dark elf stereotype, Larian lets us play as Seldarin Drow, surface elves, who reject Lolth's teachings. Now, I should say that many authors, including R.A. Salvatore, known for The Legend of Drizzt, Elaine Cunningham, Starlight and Shadow series, and Lisa Smeedman, the Lady Penitent series, helped fully flesh out Drow and their lore, and definitely played a huge hand in getting us to this point. So I'd definitely be sure to check them out if you're interested in Drow lore. But back to Baldur's Gate. The fact that you have the power of choice alone adds a layer of complexity to Drow identity. Are they inherently sinister? Or are they just following the only gods and rules they've ever known? And if given the chance, could they build something different? These are the kind of questions that make the Drow lore so compelling. Also, let's be real, Drow get the best armor designs. I mean, have you seen Minthara's outfit? It's like goth couture meets tactical warfare. And don't get me started on the Underdark aesthetic. It's all glowing mushrooms, spider silk, and dramatic lighting. Now that we've unpacked some of the lore, let's create our Lolthsworn Drow. First, we need a name. Something elegant, mysterious, and vaguely threatening. How about Fala? It's the Choctaw word for raven, and I think it's got just the right mix of nobility and menace. Ah yes, I see it now. Fala, a woman of refinement, of purpose, of questionable allegiance. A Drow of the Underdark, sworn to Lolth, not out of devotion, but out of necessity. And yet, she's somehow true neutral. A contradiction wrapped in silk, soaked in poison. The kind of woman who watches a war unfold and bets on both sides. The kind of woman who writes the songs of the revolution, but keeps the receipts for who paid for them. Next, class. So, what's Fala's deal? Is she a rogue, slipping through the shadows, leaving a trail of unfortunate accidents in her wake? Or maybe a cleric of Lolth, preaching the gospel of backstabbing with a sacred whip? I think that's too obvious. Maybe she's a wizard, because nothing screams power move quite like detonating a fireball in a room full of rivals. Wait, hold on. This is interesting. Can Drow be druids? I haven't heard much about it, if at all, but now that I'm thinking about it, oh, maybe a bard. Okay, it's definitely between bard and druid. Just so you know, this is like my 12th playthrough of this game. I'm truly obsessed, and this is going to be the first time that I don't romance Karlach. I'm playing as Fala, as we know, a Drow, which is really my favorite. Okay, it's between bard and druid. Let's try them both on for size, shall we? Okay, here's option 1. The Whisperer of the Dark Queen, Bard. In a Lolth-dominated city, a bard is never just a bard. There are no wandering minstrels down here, no open mic nights at the local tavern. If you're singing, you're scheming. If you're performing, you're lying. The Whisperers of the Dark Queen are bards trained in espionage, seduction, and the kind of psychological warfare that leaves their victims thanking them for the privilege. She is one of them. She does not worship Lolth, but she sings her praises when necessary. She does not believe in the Spider Queen's rule, but she understands that Lolth's favor is the best camouflage money can't buy. In a city where faith is currency, she deals in counterfeit devotion. Her tools? A rapier, drowcraft, humming with latent magic. A voice so sharp it could cut through adamantine. A mind that never stops calculating the odds, adjusting, shifting, waiting. She uses spells that slip through the air like a lover's whisper. Suggestion, invisibility, modify memory. You think you're making a deal with her, but she's already made it for you. You think you've seduced her, but you're just another note in her song. And if you're lucky, you'll never hear the final verse coming. Okay, well that was fun. I don't do a whole lot of character creation, but I think that has potential. It's too bad bards have such goofy outfits in the beginning, and I really do like playing as a high charisma class. But I've definitely already had a bard playthrough, and I'm kind of thinking I want to do something totally new. There are so many druids in this game, but I've never played as or even heard anyone play as a Drow Druid. Let me know if you have. I'd love to hear your character. But here's what I'm thinking for option 2. The Keeper of the Venom Web, Druid. Most Drow think of druids as myths. old stories whispered about renegades who abandoned their noble houses and disappeared into the depths, trading silk for moss, daggers for teeth. They are ghosts, spider keepers, poison breathers. And yet, here she is. She is Lolthsworn, but only in the way a spider swears loyalty to its own web. She doesn't live in a city. She is the city, the stone, the roots, the ecosystem that pulses beneath the streets. When houses rise and fall, she remains, unmoving, watching. Where a cleric wields a scourge, she wields something slower. Her tools? Spells that shape the world. Entangle, spider climb, insect plague. A cloak woven from mycelium, shifting and pulsing with unseen life. A poison garden, cultivated with the precision of a jeweler, setting the rarest of gemstones. A philosophy that is neither good nor evil, just pragmatic, balanced. You come to her when you are lost, when the political web has collapsed beneath your feet, when the house that once protected you is now the one hunting you. She doesn't ask why. She doesn't judge. She'll offer you shelter, perhaps even a second chance. But make no mistake, she's not kind, she's not merciful, she's neutral. And if she decides that the balance of the Underdark would be better served without you, she won't waste her breath on a warning. So, what do you think? These are the two paths that I've considered, both entwined with fate, both walking a razor's edge between survival and destruction. I wanted my character to be a true neutral. She's not a hero, she's not the villain, she's just a drow with class. And if you're smart, you'll stay out of her way. Before we wrap up this episode, let's revisit the whole reverse patriarchy thing. The Drow are a fascinating case study in how flipping the script doesn't necessarily fix the system. Instead of creating equality, they've just created a new hierarchy with different oppressors. It's a reminder that true equality isn't about who's on top. It's about dismantling the system altogether. So, while Fala might still be a product of her society, she's also a critique of it. She's ambitious, ruthless, and deeply flawed. But isn't that what makes a great character? Okay, now here's where the Lovelorn part kind of sets in. Enter Minthara, paladin of the absolute, ruthless, ambitious, and extremely my type. BG3 lets us romance her, and honestly, this is where the drow themes get even more interesting. Minthara isn't just a generic villainous drow. She has motivations, personal struggles, and layers that make her stand out. She's denounced Lolth, and through her, we see what loyalty to Lolth and the Absolute actually costs. The constant paranoia, the lack of genuine connection, the ever-present fear of betrayal. When you romance her, you're not just choosing a love interest. You're choosing to challenge everything she's ever known. It's tragic, it's fascinating, and it's also kind of hot. But let's keep this academic. Drow are one of the most complex and debated races in D&D lore. Their history is full of contradictions. They're both feared and misunderstood, oppressors and the oppressed. Deeply religious, yet inherently rebellious. Through Baldur's Gate 3, we get to explore them in ways that are more nuanced than ever before. So this playthrough is going to be a journey. Not just through the Underdark, but through history, mythology, and maybe even self-reflection. It's also probably the only playthrough where I don't romance Karlach, and boy, is that going to be hard. This video just broke the surface on drow lore, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you play as a drow? What's your character's lore? I'd love to know. Thank you for spinning this web with me. May your rolls be high, your daggers be sharp, and your spider companions be mostly house trained.